Hello everyone, Stormer1 here. Today we're going to have a very quick update of what's going to be a big tornado outbreak across central and western Kentucky. We also got the threat for very large hail and destructive winds. So we're going to go straight into the SPC outlook for tonight. We have a rare high risk that is out for far western Kentucky, the Purchase region of western Kentucky, which would include places like Mayfield, Paducah, Murray is also included, Eddyville. All those communities are in a rare 5 out of 5 high risk. And to give you guys a perspective how rare a high risk is in Kentucky, our last high risk was the March 2nd, 2012 tornado outbreak. That is Kentucky's last high risk. So it's been over 10 years. So it's very rare to have a high risk around here, and that tells you that this is one of those type of events you really need to take seriously and really keep a close eye on going forward this evening and into tonight. We got a moderate risk for severe weather, and it includes basically along and west of the I-65 corridor. It includes Bowling Green, E-Town, Louisville, even goes all the way up into Indianapolis. It even parts of the Cincinnati metro and just west of Dayton. So those areas on the moderate risk. The enhanced risk includes the bluegrass region, so Lexington, Frankfort, Danville. It goes all the way down towards Albany, Campbellsville, Liberty, Stanford. It goes all the way up into Maysville in northeastern Kentucky. Meanwhile, southeastern Kentucky is in a slight to marginal risk area, which is the area that's got much lower confidence for severe weather. So that's the categorical risk. Here's the tornado outlook, and you can see where we have the high risk is where we have a 30% chance of seeing a tornado 25 miles of any given point. That's a pretty high chance. 30% is not something you see very often on a tornado outlook, and trust me, that is a pretty high chance of seeing a tornado in meteorology. And in areas in the moderate risk have that 15% chance of seeing a tornado, and areas in enhanced risk has a 10% chance. And you can see you also have the hatched area, or all those black dashed lines. That's an indication for the potential for strong tornadoes, EF2 or greater. And there's even an outside chance for some intense tornadoes, which could be tornadoes EF3 strength out there. So yeah, very real threat for multiple strong long track tornadoes is out there. And I think the better ingredients would be in western Kentucky, where we got the high risk, but you can see that strong tornado risk can be as far east as parts of central Kentucky out there. And then as we move on to the damage wind threat, we got a 45% chance of seeing damage winds across western Kentucky and up along the Interstate 71 corridor. That is, basically a 50-50 chance of seeing damage winds. And there's that hatched area that's out there. That's an indication for the potential for destructive winds that could be greater than 75 or even 80 miles per hour. And it would not surprise me if we see some wind gusts maybe pushing 85 out there. So we could see some destructive winds out there. So the damage wind threat should not be overlooked out there as well. If any supercell out there has the potential to produce some very large hail out there. I think the very large hail threat is the lower out of the three severe weather threats, but there can certainly be instances of hail to even large hail out there as well. So we got all modes of severe weather on the table later this evening. Western Kentucky is in a tornado watch, and this is not your typical tornado watch. This is a PDS watch. This is a particularly dangerous situation. You only see these like once or twice a year on average, and this is one of the rarest type of watches you will ever get. And there's a very high probability for severe winds and tornadoes. You can see on the left side of the screen. Max expected hail could be up to 2 inches diameter. Max expected winds can be up to 80 miles an hour. And I can rule out some wind gusts possibly pushing 85 out there as well. So the potential is there for some destructive winds, and also very large hail is out there. If we look at visible satellite imagery, you can see across most of Kentucky is quiet, but that is going to change over the next couple hours. We got some thunderstorms that are trying to blossom up in far western Kentucky. Those are heading towards the Paducah area. But the ones we really got to pay attention to is some renegade supercells that are forming from middle Tennessee into western Tennessee and even down to northwestern Alabama and northern Mississippi. But the main show, the main line of storms, is really starting to get its act together from eastern Arkansas through eastern Missouri all the way up into Illinois. And these storms here have had a history producing damaged winds, large hail, and even tornadoes. We've already had several tornadoes so far today, and we're likely to get many more over the next several hours out there. And you can see across central Kentucky here, got some milky clouds out there. That's only going to help moisten up the atmosphere just a little bit with those milky clouds, which could actually help weaken the cap inversion that we have out here. If you don't know what a cap is, it's basically a layer of warm air in somewhere in the lower levels in the atmosphere, and thunderstorms cannot break through that cap. The storms will have a hard time. So it's basically like a lid over a can. You can't get out of the can if you can't get past the lid. So that's basically what a cap is out there, and that's what we have across most of Kentucky, which has been helping us prevent from seeing supercell thunderstorms. But that's not been the case in middle and western Tennessee, as we've had multiple storms that have breaking through that cap out there, and those are moving northeast into south central Kentucky. If we look at radar right now, we got supercells that are beginning to approach the Kentucky and Tennessee border right now, and some of these are severe warned. You got a couple others that are tornado warned in southwestern Tennessee. But when this wind energy picks up over the next couple of hours, then you're really going to start to see these supercells take shape. And we get some renegade supercells even going a little bit east of the I-65 corridor, and these are moving northeast out there. So these would be heading towards south central Kentucky, and maybe if they make it, they could make it all the way up towards the Bluegrass region out there as well. So these are supercells that we really got to watch for, and the atmosphere out ahead of it is primed for significant severe weather out ahead of those storms. But then again, the main show is still off to our west. Look at all of these tornado warning boxes across eastern Arkansas, and look at all these supercells. And any of these supercells can easily produce a tornado. Conditions are primed for big tornadoes in eastern Arkansas, and you can see your squall line is starting to take shape, and that's where your destructive wind threat is going to come from out there. We actually got a severe thunderstorm warning for west of Paducah here. Looks like a thunderstorm capable of producing large hail and damaged winds. More tornado warnings in eastern Missouri, even going all the way up into south central Illinois, and even more severe thunderstorm warnings all the way up into northern Indiana. So a ton of severe weather and even more tornado warnings back down towards the Arlatex region. So yeah, and it's only going to get worse from here. We're going to see many more severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings, and just like that, 2 new tornado warnings in eastern Arkansas, as you just saw right there. And we got supercells right on our doorstep down here towards the Kentucky-Tennessee border here. So if anybody's watching from the Bowling Green area, should really keep an eye on these supercells right now, as those will continue to move off to the northeast, and those supercells will continue to mature. And if we look at the conditions out there right now, temperatures are very warm out there, upper 70s to low 80s out there. If we look at high temperatures for today, pretty much everybody got into the 80s. We even had some mid 80s out there. And look at Lawrence County. They reach a high temperature of 88 degrees today. So it's been very warm out there for some areas. It's also been pretty windy. Wind gusts right now are generally 20 to 30 miles an hour. It's not as windy as earlier, as we had peak wind gusts generally 40 to 50 miles an hour in quite a few areas, with even some locally 50 plus mile an hour wind gusts out there. We got 52 mile an hour wind gusts from Nicholas and Clark counties out there from the Kentucky Mesna stations. Alrighty, so let's look into our environment right now. So we'll start off with instability. So actually, let me go back a little bit. I almost forgot. Dew points is also very important. Uh, Dew points can help bring more storm fuel as well, and you can see here really dew points are generally in the low to mid 60s out there, and really the mid 60 dew points is very supportive for severe weather, and that's what we have for areas along and west of I-65. East of 75, we got looks like some upper 50 dew points, and those are not really favorable for severe weather. So I'm not really concerned for areas in eastern Kentucky for severe weather. I would really pay attention for areas west of I-75 as of right now for severe weather tonight. The only exception would be northern Kentucky. I think we can still see a decent amount of severe weather across northern Kentucky up there as well. Now let's get into the instability numbers. So right now we got instability values north of 2,000 along and west of I-75. And that is more than supportive for severe weather. Ideally, for severe weather, you want instability values north of 1,000. We're double that. Even some 2,500 values down in Middle Tennessee, where we got those renegade supercells that are down there. And if we look at mixed layer Cape, it's generally anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, so that's favorable for severe weather. If you look at mid-level lap rates, we got some numbers out there. Really up around a 7 would be favorable for severe weather, including the threat for large hail. So we do have that. Low-level lap rates, which can help make storms become more surface-based. Ideally around a 7 or higher would be favorable. We do have those numbers out there, and these numbers here will drop as you get into the evening, which is normal out there. But that still doesn't take away the threat for surface-based storms. Not necessarily out there. Let's talk about some wind shear. If you look at bulk shear right now, really wind shear north of 40 knots would be favorable for severe weather. We actually got that throughout the entire state of Kentucky, with the highest numbers being in western Kentucky, where we got bulk shear up to 60 knots. So we got some pretty strong shear in western Kentucky. These numbers are only going to continue to increase from here, as that low of a jet is going to start to crank. And if we do look at the low of a jet right now, we got low of a jet winds in eastern Arkansas are up to 60 knots. We're expecting low of a jet winds to get up towards 60 to 70 knots here. So it's only going to get stronger from here, and really the more intense supercells right now is actually within the strongest part of the low of a jet, up to 60 knots. We'll see a very similar scenario happen here in Kentucky here very soon. Up here, the low of a jet's not as strong up here in Kentucky, but it's still supportive for severe weather, even including tornadoes. Ideally, north of 40 knots would be favorable for severe weather, even as low as 35 knots too. So we have that. And then if we look at storm rate of helicity, ideally for tornadoes, north of 150 is favorable. Strong tornadoes will probably be north of 300 or even closer to 400. We actually got numbers up around 400 out there, especially along the west of I-75 out there. So we got the wind shear out there. And if we look at the hodographs out there right now, you can see here, these hodographs here represents of what thunderstorm structures can look like. And you can see here how these photographs is favorable for supercell structures out there, and even including the threat for tornadoes out there. So we got some pretty nice photographs out there. And if we actually look at SKU-Ts, these are a look at forecast soundings, and I'll zoom in here to have a closer view here for you guys so you guys can see better. But you can see where we have our cap inversion in the lower levels, but as the atmosphere starts to moisten here, it does weaken the cap, and you can kind of see that in the middle of Tennessee here, where we got thunderstorms where you don't have as much dry air. The cap is pretty much broken in some spots. But with those higher clouds moving over Kentucky here out ahead of these supercells, those higher clouds are actually helping moistening up the atmosphere a little bit, which can help weaken the cap. So when we get more moisture in here, that's actually going to help weaken the cap a little bit more here. So that's going to be something else we're going to really watch for And let's talk about some parameters here. Let's look at the supercell composite parameters. And you can see here, ideally for severe weather, north of a 4 can be favorable for severe weather, and even supercells in general. We got numbers up as high as 16, so a lot higher than a 4. And where we got the more intense supercells right now in eastern Arkansas, it's up as high as a 28. Some very high supercell composite parameters down there. If we look at significatory parameters, we can see here numbers higher than a 1 is conditions favorable for tornadoes, but if it's higher than a 2, the conditions can be favorable for strong tornadoes. Right now, we got numbers during 1 through 2 for right now. Some of these numbers may actually increase as we go through the evening, but you can see where we got the more intense supercells in eastern Arkansas, even going to western Tennessee. Numbers are up as high as a 5. And those numbers will likely move into western Kentucky within the next couple of hours. So the severe weather threat right now is only increasing from here for western Kentucky out there. So we basically got all the ingredients there for a significant severe weather event. Nothing's really missing out there. And one last thing we can check is surface vorticity and 3 Cape. And usually when you have a pretty decent combination of two, it can make things easier for supercells to produce tornadoes. And we do have a little bit of mix of both out there across western Kentucky and even down to western Tennessee, and even, especially eastern Arkansas, where we've had multiple reports of tornadoes out there. So, and these numbers here will move into Kentucky later this evening. So basically, we got all the conditions there for severe weather. And let's look into the HRRR run. And don't take this as the holy grail. It's just a simulation, but it can give you an idea of what it could look like over the next few hours. And this model does update every hour. But you can see here, really, within a couple of hours here, we should start to see some intense supercells move into western Kentucky out there. And the HRRR model's actually got storms primarily west of I-65. But if we go back to radar here, so this is what the model thinks that what reflectivity would is excuse me, I'm losing my words here a little bit. So basically the HRRR models, so this is what it thinks that what radar should look like right now. Well, if we actually look at radar, notably there's a lot more storms happening in around the middle Tennessee area right now. And a couple of these are pretty organized supercells, including this one here north of Nashville that is moving northeast right now. And right now, if you go back to the HRRR model run, it shows no storms in middle Tennessee. So you can already tell there's a flaw in this run already. Now the newest run of the HRRR model is coming out. We can look at the latest 22Z run to see if it actually still picks up on that, and it really isn't. But we'll use the latest run here anyway. But it likes to keep most storms west of I-65. Based off of the current radar right now, that's probably not going to be the case. There could be a couple of renegade supercells east of I-65 moving to south central Kentucky and potentially lasting into the Bluegrass region. We'll see how atmospheric conditions are ahead of those supercells. And the main uncertainty is how strong the cap is going to be, because right now the cap is still decently strong across central Kentucky. But with the moisture values increasing, especially with that high cloud cover in the upper parts of the atmosphere, is kind of helping moisten up the atmosphere just a little bit here. But you can see here by the HRRR run, you got some renegade supercells west of I-65. Those will likely produce large hail and even some tornadoes. Some of those tornadoes could be strong and long track. And you can see how those quickly zip through western Kentucky all the way up into southern Indiana. And then here comes the main show. And it's this intense squall line rolling through here. But you can kind of see here as they kind of get east of I-65, they start to lose intensity a little bit. But really, any Boeing segment like this, can support damage winds, and there's that outside chance for some destructive winds inside of some of these Boeing segments, especially west of I-65. And even though we may not have many supercells out ahead of this line, there can certainly be some tornadoes up and down along this line as well. Conditions are very favorable for tornadoes along the squall line, and I cannot even rule out maybe a strong tornado or two along this line as well, considering how strong our wind shear is going to be. And you can see how those storms here even last into Thursday morning in the parts of eastern and south central Kentucky out there as those storms are beginning to stall out, which could actually lead to a flood risk out there tomorrow morning. And if we check out the environment here, if we check out the significatory parameters from the HRRR run here, you can see here how those numbers there generally stay pretty favorable, but you can see here as you get deeper into the evening, as that low of a jet starts to crank, you're starting to get numbers up around a 4, maybe even close to a 5 in a couple of different spots, especially up and down along the I-65 corridor. So conditions can be pretty favorable for some strong tornadoes out there, and you can see how the numbers really drop as those storms are getting into eastern Kentucky here. So really the area of most concern, at least as of right now, for the potential for stronger tornadoes, kind of looks to be kind of west of the 127 corridor as of right now. Since the modeling is not really picking up on those storms in middle Tennessee, and it's very possible that these storms here may continue to break through the cap as they move off to the northeast. And it kind of makes me a little bit more concerned for these areas, kind of in here. So we definitely got to keep an eye on how those supercells do progress here, but make sure if you guys do follow me on X, I'm going to be active on X over the next several hours, tracking these storms. I'll be posting radar images, retweeting severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings out there as well. So make sure you follow my X account, which would be in the link in the description down below. And one last thing before I go, here's the timing of the storms, and this is based off of the squall line. This does not include renegade supercells. If you do get a renegade supercell, it could be earlier than what the times are being shown here. So this is primarily for that line of storms. So in western Kentucky, it's going to be through the evening, but you can see here as you get along and east of I-65, how it could be around midnight. And then especially east of I-65, where for most areas it should be past midnight by that point. Maybe the only exception would be up along I-71 corridor, where it may be 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. But this is a look at your times out there, and it's very possible that these storms here may not actually make it to some areas in southeastern Kentucky. Probably these areas in here. Those storms may not make it into these areas, or maybe not even these areas in here as well. So you guys may get lucked out that you may not see storms out of the setup here. But honestly, I think the main area of concern right now, based off of what I'm seeing currently, probably be along and west of the 127 corridor. Those supercells are initiating farther east than expected, which tells me that the stronger tornado risk, or maybe even that moderate risk, might need to come farther to the east. So we definitely got to watch how those supercells down Middle Tennessee progress over the next few hours, and I will have updates on these supercells in this severe weather event all evening long on my X account. So make sure to follow me on X and hit that bell notification so you never missed a post from me. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you really like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you never miss an upload. If you guys get any questions, you can put in the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day, and also have a safe night.